Hey, Programming 12, we are going to be doing our spaceship now for the Asteroids game. We're going to start by creating the spaceship, and we're going to remind you a bit about object-oriented programming, since it might have been a little while, a few months, since you did it in Programming 11, or maybe a few years, who knows, whenever you took it last. So let's get started with making a new tab for our spaceship class. I tend to organize things into tabs. All my modes are all caps. So when I make a new tab, I'll make my class a lowercase spaceship, and that way it'll go alphabetically after the all caps ones. So that kind of lets me find things a little bit easier. I'll leave it to you to decide how you want to organize your tabs. So remember, in object-oriented programming, we're more concerned about the particular objects that are within this program. And we're going to try and program those separately and then create an environment where they interact. So we're going to program a spaceship separately from a bullet, separately from an asteroid, separately from a UFO, and whatever other things we need to put in. And I think that's going to be a great reminder of how that works. And we'll be finding out some new features of object-oriented programming as well. So let's get started. To create spaceship objects, we have to create a blueprint for them, and that's called a class. So this is going to be class spaceship. Spaceship. I'll type it like that. Just to let you know, classes tend to be capitalized with a capital S. I don't know. I think it's all one word. I don't think we need a capital S and ship. So spaceship class names are usually capitalized. And then we have a few things that go into a class. We have what are called the instance variables. They're the things that the object will remember. And every copy of this spaceship, every spaceship we create, will have its own unique copies of these variables. We need a constructor, which is a fancy word, just means the thing that initializes the instance variables. Like, what are the starting values? When you create a spaceship, what is its location and so on? Like, where are they? Not just what do they remember, but what are those starting values? It's almost like a setup, a private little setup for just this class, things of this class. And then we'll have the behavior functions. Behavior, wow. Functions. These functions are the things that the spaceship can do. So I think that'll be fantastic to build that in for a spaceship, because there's some obvious things a spaceship can do. You know, it can, drawing itself on the screen, we'll probably put that as a separate behavior, the show function, and then it's an act function. You know, it can fly, it can shoot, you know, it'll have some interesting things that it can do. Okay, so let's get started. First off, for instance variables, we're going to be using p vectors. So instead of saying like float x and y, no, that's the old way. We're going to make a p vector called location. We'll also make a p vector for velocity, because it's going to fly. And we'll make a p vector for direction. Dir. We'll call it dir. So location, velocity, and direction. So the location is pretty obvious. It's its xy coordinates. The velocity is fairly obvious. It's like how fast and in what direction it's moving. But direction is separate in asteroids, because spaceships can be gliding but turning freely in space. It's sort of like 0g gravity, right? You kind of push something in a direction, it's going to float in that that vector. But you can still freely turn around, so you can be facing backwards while floating and so on. It's kind of classic video game, space 2D video game mechanics. So the direction is sort of which way is the spaceship pointing, but it's not necessarily the same as its velocity. Okay, so here we go. So constructor, we got to construct these things. The constructor's name is always the same as the class. So we're going to say spaceship. And the spaceship's going to have pretty standard stuff. It's going to, when we create the spaceship, its location will probably be in the center. So we'll use the new keyword to instantiate the p vector. Fancy word for just make the p vector. And of course, it's an object too. So that's going to be similar to the spaceship. We'll put it at the center of the screen, whatever that happens to be. Our velocity, let's start it at not moving at all. Let's just make it not moving. And the direction, Let's make it face to the right. For me, that's this way. I'm not sure how it's turning out in the video. I should probably double check that. I've said that twice now. So to the right, I'll say 1, 0. All right. Let's see. I think that's a good place to start. I think that also spaceships might be a good place to put like how many lives you have left. But I'm going to leave it blank for now because this is sort of like the primary things we need. And then as we go further, I'll probably get you to add your own features into Spaceship. So this isn't the be all and end all, but it's the start. Okay, so let's find out what we're going to do for our behavior functions. So I think we'll make void show. That's going to be like, what does the spaceship look like? And void act. This will be what the spaceship does. And I think spaceships will generally like move, and they'll shoot, and they'll check for collisions. That's probably what it's going to do. Now, none of these exist yet, so we have to build them in. But that's sort of like what I like to do. And of course, they're not necessarily always, like you're not always pressing the keys to be moving, and you're not always shooting. So, you can, these functions will be sort of like for handling those events when they occur and dealing with that. And check for collisions, I guess we'll be checking every frame just to see if we crashed into something. But we'll mostly make these just kind of blank for now, and then we'll fill those in. So we got void move, void, I'll make them a little smaller actually, so we can fit it all on the screen. Void move, void shoot, and that's going to be blank for a while, I think, as is check for collisions. We'll just put them in there, ready to go. Oops, void. Void. There we go. Okay, so there are our deals. I think this is a good place to start. So I think the first thing, now that we got all this kind of structure set up, I think we'll make a show function, and then we'll try building a spaceship and see if we can get it to show up in our game. And that's what we're going to do in our next video. So hopefully this structure here of the class makes sense. Let me know in class if you have a question. No pun intended. It's hard to talk about class. And stay tuned for the next video to see how we can actually make our spaceship show. Thank you.